Welcome to the very first episode of Connect to Create. Blaise is an award-winning digital marketer, speaker, and writer with a career that spanned everything from building product marketing teams to writing thoughtful essays on the future of creativity. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Connect to Create. My name is Dhoreena Ventura, and your host, and I'm joined by Blaise Lucey today. Welcome, Blaise.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Well, you were one of the inspiration for really making this happen, so thank you. And I thought it would just be the perfect moment for us to start with you as being our first guest, because I've seen your journey throughout our partnership together, and I've always admired your dedication to making sure that you're working on the creative outputs and your projects that you have on the side, even outside of work. So one of the questions that I've always had, and I don't think I've even asked you this in our long-term relationship, is what has been the moment that really sparked the idea of you knowing that you were going to be a writer and a musician?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really interesting question. Because I've been writing since I was too young to remember writing. But I think that it isn't really a moment in time. It's
Yeah.
you're doing it, and as you're doing it, you become the thing. So I didn't really think of being a writer. I thought of writing, and I didn't really think of playing music. I just played music. It's something that kind of calls to you, whatever your creative or inspirational activity is, which is a really weird thing to think about because most other moments in life have this defining thing where you say, yes, that's when I knew I wanted to do this.
Yeah.
But at least in my case, I was just always writing because I couldn't help myself. Right at the start of when I was 6, writing rip-offs that were Goosebumps, but they had baby chickens in them instead as the main character. Yeah.
Yeah. So it seems like it always called on you no matter what. And it's led you to where you are now. What are you doing lately to really work on the creative projects?
I think it's always interesting to try to prioritize what you're feeling for the same reason. So Rick Rubin's a very famous producer, and he did The Creative Act. That was a book that he published about how he tries to basically make creative people get inspired.
Yeah.
But a lot of it, he talks about being open to what's going on around you. So whenever I'm working on something new, it's generally a reflection of what's happening now. So, for example, a lot of my writing is kind of about what's happening in the culture or how AI and what AI means for different things. So I guess in terms of projects, they're always going to be what seems most important to me at the time.
Yeah. So you kind of just work on projects based on what's happening in around like the world. That's what
Yes,
you're saying.
the world. We made it so far.
I know. That was so good.
So yeah, and that seems kind of weird to say too, though, because generally, as a creative, you're going to have
Mhm.
something. It has to be like a guiding vision, and the guiding vision is really the way you see the world. And so the way you see the world is almost how you end up creating something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And what inspires you the most?
Yeah, that's again like a really interesting question about inspiration because it's so part of the atmosphere.
Yeah.
Sometimes a lot of the times we're just like sponges, like collecting stuff, and then the idea you have is actually a result of all these little tiny things that are happening all at once. But for me, I'm constantly reading. I'm trying to always understand other points of view,
Hmm.
be not optimistic, but not pessimistic when I look at stuff. And that allows you to be more curious, I'd say, about everything. So I'd say curiosity that's not judgmental, which is really, really hard now, but
Yeah.
that's the way I kind of see new things in a different way.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about being a product marketer is you really have to be curious to understand the problems that are happening and why you're creating positioning and messaging for the clients. So, and I always say that curiosity is a lot better than trying to be a lawyer when you're trying to defend something.
Hmm.
and rather it's better to, I think, be curious about what others are doing and be like a detective almost. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I love what you said around curiosity. Well, speaking of curiosity, what idea or what anything in the world have you been the most curious about lately?
Um, I think that it's impossible not to say AI at this point
Yeah,
because AI is moving so fast and it's rapidly changing the way we value things in a way.
yeah,
So, you can create any number of things immediately. My first job was writing articles, 10 articles a day for like 6 different clients. And now AI could kind of just generate those articles, right? So that's completely different at this point. And I think it's very scary right now. And the only thing that I think about now that I'm curious about is how can AI actually make things better? What if it's not the end of the world, the end of the creative world? Because part of it is we're already in an age of infinite content,
yeah.
and I'm curious, how do you make people care now at this point?
Yeah, one of the topics that you and I have talked about on the side has been around, I think the difference between AI and humans creating content is AI can't make people care, right? It's the
Mhm.
people delivering that story or talking about it that makes people inspired to do something when it comes to understanding that content or hearing about it for the first time. How has AI changed the way that you work now?
It's interesting. Mostly it's a matter of correcting what AI is being producing and stuff
Yeah.
that gets sent to me.
Yeah.
But I don't really find it that compelling when you're writing something because again, it's not producing stuff that's necessarily as passionate or interesting as it could be. And this
Yeah.
from a writing perspective.
Yeah.
From a graphic design perspective, I've been using it a lot as a tool to generate images
Yeah.
for my own, essay collection stuff. And I've also used it as almost concepting. So if I'm trying to think of something, I'll generate something and just see what happens. But honestly, like templates and Canva are still better for me than AI because that gives you a framework to work with. And
Yeah.
I think one of the risks with AI is it doesn't give you a framework that makes something good. It just shoots off whatever you ask for.
Yeah. And I use AI a lot in the internal comms, the things that I do that are a bit more tedious that I'd like for it to
Mm,
take over. However, I don't think it can take on a lot of the enablement or the delivery and the education that needs to happen in order for people to sing the same song or have the same messaging and learn the same way. So when we're talking about a new product or a new feature, it's we're talking about it from the same lens with the same
mm.
tone of voice. And that has a lot of enablement and education and a lot of, I think, people needing to be involved in order to make that happen.
Yeah, there's still a lot of friction that is between all those points. But then again, you might just end up having like machines selling to other machines, which would
Yeah,
be a really weird future because
that would be.
in theory, that's what would happen if everyone was using AI for everything. Like even
Yeah.
a sales call would be two virtual people just selling to each other with scripts. And then the machines is selling another type of machine, like an algorithm.
Yeah, and they do exist. We've seen solutions
Yeah.
to where there are AI models selling SDRs that are virtual or customer success managers that are also. So
Hmm.
it's definitely happening and one that they're trying to position as a lot more scalable than
Yeah.
humans, but it's worth to look into. Like, I don't know if I'd ever buy anything from an AI talking to me and telling me what it is.
Yeah, exactly. And really I think the burden on us now as marketers and people is to
Yeah.
understand how AI is going to play a role in our life,
Yeah.
almost the same way we all had to go on social media at some point or
Yeah.
adopt to a smartphone, right? And so once we all have gotten on that same page, it'll
Yeah.
probably be okay, but there's whole legions of jobs that won't exist, right? And that's the scary part, I think.
Yeah. I mean, they're saying right now that AI is not going to take over jobs, but someone who knows how to use AI
Hmm.
and who knows how to use it well and prompt it well will take over your job.
Yeah.
So it's all about like understanding what's out there and what you can do to make the most of it.
Hmm.
What are some things that you're implementing with your team that you've seen work?
For AI,
Yeah.
um, man, I think the most effective use of AI I've actually done thus far is creating LinkedIn posts myself
Mm.
and then using AI to create part of a blog post from it. Because then you have three different angles that enhance the prompt. And then that builds out something that you would have had to do anyway. And it's just like rewriting stuff. So it's helped with the process of not having to repurpose stuff in the same way. So it saves time that way. Um, but that's pretty much the big one. I haven't really used it for, you hear all the LinkedIn influencers are using it and
Yeah.
everything's like the problem with
Yeah.
AI, right, is that it can't come up with an original idea
Yeah.
in the sense that you're not going to have opinion in the same way that a person coming in would do that.
Yeah. Because everything is all input
It's
output.
all learned, right? So it literally can't. And that's why
Yeah.
you kind of have this thing where AI generates the median writing style, right? It's all kind of weirdly academic. It scrapes from a bunch of marketing websites. You have
Yeah.
that weird dash everywhere.
M dashes and all.
Mhm.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
see it everywhere. I think now you can tell if you see a post on LinkedIn if it is created by AI. You can just tell the style at this point.
Yeah, and the big thing there is if you couldn't be bothered to write it, why would people be bothered to read it? You
Yeah.
know? So that's I think there's a huge problem now where Microsoft found that people who use AI aren't cognitively processing what they're even doing. So
Yeah.
they're actively getting worse at their jobs as they're using AI.
Yeah.
Um, which is almost like they're replacing themselves with AI. Like, so that's also a very strange thing. So I think
Yeah.
you have to be careful of getting too reliant on the AI because you're losing your own human edge by
Right. And
getting too, yeah,
your ability to do anything.
yeah.
Yeah. And you were saying that the people that are using AI are the ones that are normally already productive.
Mhm.
So they're just getting to that productivity in like 10x probably at this point. But I look at AI sometimes as like Google Maps. We've always had Google Maps. We've always had our phones to organize our things. And do you remember anyone's phone number? Maybe you remember mine,
Mm.
but like I don't know how to get to anywhere now without Google Maps. And that's pretty much what AI
Yeah,
is going to do.
yeah, you're right. And that's part of the cognitive thing where you have to be careful with the balance of what you want it to do.
Yeah.
And it also is taking the joy out of the process in a lot of cases. If I like creating those
Yes.
things,
Yeah.
graphic design, I can only imagine, right? Like that whole field has to fundamentally change. But at the
Yeah.
same time, you can't have 50 people at a company using it because it's all going to be different and weird looking, right?
Right.
So I think that'll have to change. And then, of course, everything is no one knows yet. It's still in this big bubble of excitement. Like, would those video SDRs actually work? Nobody knows. Like, what if they glitch out and give a person a discount? That's literally happened. A chatbot, I think it was an
Yeah.
airline chatbot. We should look this up after. An airline chatbot gave someone a discount or something because it just like he manipulated it into doing that.
Who is that chatbot and how do we get to
Yeah.
him?
It's like the good deal discount chatbot. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Oh man. Well, where do you see AI 3 years from now?
3 years from now, I think it's all going to come down to human first selling almost out of a moral imperative
Yeah.
because otherwise who needs a job when the machine does the job?
Yeah.
And it's hard to say that AI is overblown because it obviously is affecting all of these things so quickly,
Yeah.
but there's always that first explosion of excitement, which we're in now. Then there's kind of the calm down effect of, well, all of these little chatbots actually are just chatbots, right? At the end of the day, they're just prompting, making literally the most mid stuff or like weird stuff. And it still has to be connected to a human vision. That goes back to my point is we already had infinite content.
Yeah.
Giving everyone the ability to make infinite content that now looks a little better or sounds a little better really isn't going to change the dynamic of like the biggest problem in business, which is how do you get people to pay attention to your stuff, right?
Yeah.
And AI can't really help with that. You could say you could have 50 different social media accounts run by AI, and that would help. But you'd think that there's still that at the end of the day, human first connection is the biggest thing. I mean, look at creators, influencers.
Right.
That economy is the biggest boom time now. digitally, which is the exact opposite of AI.
They crave for human connections, and
Mm,
I think there's something so beautiful around like understanding the emotion behind decisions and really understanding the pain points and knowing that you're helping make people's lives better when you're reaching out to them to pay attention about a product or something that you're selling or you want them to care about, like what you said.
yeah, totally.
All right, well, that was a lot of stuff to cover in our podcast. I want to kind of go into your personal things that you've done around creativity. I think you have always done a lot of writing. We talked about music, but what is one thing that keeps you going?
Mm, I think the only thing that keeps me going and makes anything possible is it's almost like you have to have little bite-sized snacks of inspiration.
Yeah,
Because otherwise there's not enough time in the day. But, if I have a break between a meeting or something and my bass is there, I can start working on a new song for 5 minutes.
yeah,
Um, if I'm in line somewhere or on the subway and I have my phone, I can actually work a little bit on an essay. Um, and it's always the biggest challenge for people is they have a big idea, like this podcast, right?
yeah,
And you want to sprint through the whole thing all at once.
yeah,
But if you do little bite-sized snacks of the thing, you actually get it done, right? And
yeah.
that's kind of that micro task, I guess, methodology where you have to break things up into tiny little pieces. And I'm bad at this too sometimes, but like the only way to get anything done nowadays, or anything creative or corporate, is really snacking your way to the finish line, I guess. Yeah.
That's such a good point. It's like you can't eat an elephant.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So you gotta get your way there. Should we look forward to for you? Where is Blaise Lucy going to be in 3 years?
Oof. Hopefully I'll have a book published, another book, I should say.
Another book. Yeah, you already have a published book.
Yes, yeah. Um, and right now I'm really focused on almost the impact of the expression economy and what do we lose when we're trying to completely express ourselves with no safeguards, which sounds
Yeah.
counterintuitive to what the whole idea is right now, but you lose your focus is really what happens. So if you're always so busy, oh, how can I express myself across every possibility?
Yeah.
You actually lose focus on the possibilities that work the best or inspire you the most, and I think partly because everyone can be anything technically, and AI is exactly like this too. People feel this burden to be everything. And so you're not focusing on the thing that matters most to you, that inspires you the most. And people are kind of losing themselves. So anyway, that's kind of my big project idea right now.
Yeah.
And so people can go to litverse.substack.com where my essays come out, and it's all related to some of those things. And then yeah, stay tuned for more book updates.
Nice. Well, I always want to end the call or the podcast with a little bit of positivity and a question around Let's Dish,
Hmm.
just a random questions that we'll pull out from here. This is called the little box of positivity, and we pull out quotes here. Blaise and I actually do this every morning, so this is like a fun way to kind of just understand this. All right, the one that we pulled out, and I think you can read it out.
There is no one who can tell you who to be except yourself. See?
That is
That's
so.
relevant, right?
We did not plan that, by the way.
But exactly, like my end rant is people have to stop listening to the internet so much about what they can do and what they should do. And
Yeah.
this thing is telling you same thing. You're the only person who can, what is it? Tell yourself who you
Yeah,
are.
there is no one who can tell you who to be except yourself. That's a great one. All right, now let's get into Let's Dish. So this is just a random card that asks any question. So we'll just like pull the top. How did your parents meet?
A club in San Francisco.
Nice. All right. Well, that was such a great first episode. And again, thank you for being an inspiration for me for all the things that I do that goes beyond work and the creative stuff that I do. But you are a big inspiration to me. And I'm so excited that you were able to be a part of the Connect to Create and your first episode, and I'm sure it won't be the last. All
Thank you for having me.
right, bye everyone.